Hey everyone, welcome back to Riverwalk Talk. My name is Chip Harrington. Today is going to be a little bit of a different show, even though I'm on the Riverwalk right now. I'm actually going to be heading over and interviewing an individual that I bet 99% of you out there know him and possibly his story, and that is John O'Brien. John O'Brien was a local radio personality, still is to a certain extent. He's got his podcast going. But for 35 years, he worked at Rock 102 as their morning guy, along with numerous people as partners. Most recently was with Bax and O'Brien. So John has, unfortunately, sadly, been recently diagnosed with a more aggressive form of melanoma. And the doctors have given him a prognosis of approximately 7 to 12 months to live. So I reached out to him and said, hey, is this something you want to talk about? And he was more than gracious to talk about it. It's a tough subject, obviously, but it's an important subject. So maybe in his philosophy, I think, is talk about as much as he can. Maybe some people go out there and get themselves checked and avoid the situation he's in. He's actually been dealing with this for 14 years. He was originally diagnosed 14 years ago. So today's show is going to be with John O'Brien. We're going to do it right from his living room. So hope you enjoy it. Okay, so we are, as I just mentioned at my introduction there, we are not on the Riverwalk. We're kind of over invading John O'Brien's personal space. We're in his living room right now.
Well, there's a pool over there. That might help.
We could go to the pool if you want.
Covered it already for the winter, so it might not be the same as a Riverwalk.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's water, but it doesn't necessarily count.
Yeah.
So let me say this. So my earliest memory of you, I want to say it's around 1988, and I was at the Keg Room. And you were hosting some kind of an event. You were the guy. You were kind of like running through things. And I had heard about you on the radio, heard it on your radio, but the first time I physically saw you, and you were digging people so hard. Like you were just like, you've got that thing about you where you're just kind of like throwing zingers out there. And I'm like, oh my God, who is this guy?
Yeah, and somehow I never got punched in the face.
Well,
believe it or not.
I know. You're a bigger dude anyways, so maybe that helps.
There's always bigger, but. Yeah, I mean, that was just part of, and I don't recall the incident you're talking about. I do remember doing things at the Keg Room.
Yeah.
So I don't know how far into my broadcast career that actually was. But, my whole career has been based on my personality, which is not necessarily the happy-go-lucky, today's going to be the best day of the rest of your life kind of crap. It's more of a reality-based personality. So for some reason, I could get away with that kind of stuff. People looked at that more as entertainment than they did as insulting.
Yeah, no, I've listened to you guys for a long, long time. I'm happy to say, like, consider you, Bax, Steve, friends. I've been on your show a couple times. Every time I ran for some political office, you guys were nice enough to have me on over there. So you're a Western Mass guy, right? You grew up in.
I grew up in Enfield.
In Enfield, exactly. So you're a Western Mass guy. So. Did it help being kind of having that institutional knowledge of this whole area when you were on air? Because you were always busting Palmer's chops all the time.
Well, it was first it was Chicopee.
Yeah.
And then when I moved to Chicopee, I had to find another place to bust. Otherwise, it would have looked a little hypocritical. And that's where I came up with Palmer, which was also, by the way, very easy to choose. But the other thing, too, is, when I first got into the business, I wanted to be one of those gypsies. I wasn't even thinking about doing mornings. I just wanted to be in radio, wanted to be a disc jockey or what have you, but move around, see different parts of the country. And the fact of the matter is, a point came where I had been doing mornings for years, and then I started to realize, you know what? I think I'd rather be the big fish in the small pond. I don't necessarily need to move. All of my partners, every one of the five, all came from and then went to other faraway places. I've stayed here my whole career, my whole life actually, for that matter, and I think that actually helped me to be able to be as successful as I was throughout most of that career.
Yeah, so even as a young person, you kind of knew like radio was kind of that was your passion? You wanted to get into it? Or
Number one thing I wanted to do was to be a police officer.
Yeah.
But my vision issues, unfortunately, kept me away from being able to do that full time. Number two was, yes, I wanted to be in radio. And I went into broadcasting school at the age of 19. I graduated within 6 months, and within 2 months of that, I had my first job at a station down in Hartford doing producing an overnight talk show. And that was where it took off from. It just from 19 on, it was with a 2-year interruption somewhere in my 20s. Everything just was smooth for some reason. I lucked out. I lucked out in the industry.
Yeah. So you said 19. So that was around what, 1978, 79?
78 is when I graduated high school. 79 is when I went to broadcasting school. So probably 80, right around 1980.
Yeah. And then, I mean, back in the day, you know, there was all sorts of different local radio stations, but AQY was sort of the hip, you know, the classic. Well, it's classic rock now. Back then, it was just regular rock. You know.
Before that, it was disco.
Oh, okay. That's before my time. I'm not even aware of that.
It was disco when it first came out.
Wow. Yeah. And you were on air?
No,
oh, okay. I was going to say.
I wasn't even then.
I wouldn't think you and disco would match.
No, me and disco wouldn't match. But the other thing too is, and this progressed over the years as we went through what we did together, whether it was me with anyone else besides Bax or even me and Bax. When Bax and I were together, I would be continually complaining to the radio station that the music was really a hindrance for us. I mean, first of all, it was a talk show. I mean, no matter how you wanted to cut it, Bax and I were doing a talk show. And the music was really just getting in the way. And we didn't want to play anything longer than 4 minutes. So it was the same 100 songs from the Beatles and CCR and other, you know, groups or artists that had 3-minute songs. And we would play them over and over and over again. And it just felt like such a detriment to the show. They finally agreed with me and got them. We slowly declined. When Bax and I started together, we were playing 5 songs an hour. Then we went down to 3 songs an hour. Then we went down to 1. And then finally we got rid of that 1. Yeah. And if you notice, since they replaced me, they have reintroduced music back to the show, which is kind of an interesting scenario.
Yeah, right. So let's go back in the Wayback Machine a little bit. So your partners, you just said you had 5 of them, finishing with Bax. What was the ascension there? Who'd you have?
I won't be able to remember the years, but I will remember the names. The very first one was Brian and O'Brien. And at that time, that guy, Brian, was the program director. And there was a shakeup in management, and he was let go. So the next guy was Scott and O'Brien. And Scott it was Mike Scott was his name. And he had worked at the radio station at Rock 102, or WAQY, for years before they finally teamed me and him up as morning show. Then, I don't remember how long that lasted, but after that, there was Rodeo and O'Brien. I don't know how long that lasted too, but the 3 of them was 23 months.
Okay. Oh, really?
In their whole,
Okay.
almost 2 years for the 3 of them. Then I was let go for various reasons that we don't really need to get into. Okay. But no, I have no problem with that. But I was out for 2 years, and then they rehired, under new owners, they rehired me and brought me back in and partnered me with Jonathan. Yep. And then Jonathan and I were together for 3 years, 1 full contract. And then Jonathan decided he didn't want to do it anymore. And he left, and that's when they brought in Bax.
Right. Yeah.
And the ironic thing is, they brought Bax in from the very same station they brought Jonathan in from, out in Springfield, Illinois.
Oh, okay. Because wasn't Bax like a Wisconsin graduate?
He went to college. He grew up in Eastern Mass.
Yeah.
He went to Marquette. Yeah. So his career began in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So throughout that whole time, you're kind of building up this brand, essentially. You're kind of becoming John O'Brien out in there, kind of becoming a bit of a local celebrity throughout those years. I mean, being on the radio as much, and it's funny, I was talking to my brother. My brother's a contractor, and we were talking about this the other day, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk to John O'Brien. He's like, please tell him that from a contractor's perspective, he helped me get through so many days. You know, you and Bax and you and your team, you know, those guys put the radio on and they go to work and it's always Rock 102. And he's just like, those guys helped me get through so many days of just doing the same repetitive thing. But the funny jokes, it kind of makes the day go by like that. But
well, and the irony to that is my stepfather was a contractor as well. And he was listening to me on a regular basis. So it probably had, I don't know how many contractors I had that effect on, but it sounds like it was at least 2.
Yeah, well, I would say way more than that. But it does. It kind of escalates you to this little bit of a celebrity status. Did you recognize that at some point, that you were kind of like, all right, I can't go to Big Y without seeing somebody?
The first job that I had out of broadcasting school was at a station down in Hartford. It was WTIC AM. And I produced an overnight talk show from 1 to 5 a.m. And then what would happen at 5 a.m., they would do a half-hour news block, and it would go from 5 to 5:30. And from 5:30 to 10 was Bob Steele. And I don't know if that name,
I remember that name,
is recognizable to you, but if you do remember him, yes. There was a point in the very recent past where I came to realize I'm the Bob Steele of Springfield. I mean, Bob Steele was on the air down in Hartford at one station for 40 years. I was on the air at one station here in Springfield for 35 years. I mean, before I was doing mornings, before Brian O'Brien was ever conceived, I was doing fill-ins and weekends. I'd already been working for the station. I just happened to be there at the right time and place to be able to start doing mornings. But I recognized the popularity. I recognized the success, put it that way, the success that the show had and that I managed to have, irrespective of who my partner was. I could work with just about any, as irascible as my personality is, I could work with just about anybody given an opportunity. None of my partners, well, obviously all 5 of my partners were successes, but there were no misses in between. I didn't work with a guy for a month and somebody said, no, the chemistry was always there.
Yeah. Do you consciously go into it? So say when, like, you know, Jonathan and then you transition to Bax, but do you consciously go into like, okay, I'm going to be good cop, bad cop kind of thing? Or is that just your personality? Isn't that just kind of how it comes out?
Oh, no, I was always the bad cop.
Yeah. Well,
it didn't matter who I was with. I was the bad cop. But no, I didn't, there wasn't any pre-thought conceptions that went into working with us. And there were no practices, there were no rehearsals, there was no opportunity rather, to be able to pretend we were doing something. We were doing it from day one. And from day one, it always progressed. And as I said, none of the partnerships I was in were ended because they weren't working. They were ended for various reasons. The first guy was a part of management. There was a management shakeup and he had to go. The second guy had moved up here. He had lived up here for years, moved down to Florida. His marriage fell apart, so he came back up here again and then decided he couldn't stand the winters. It may have been he couldn't stand me, but I'm not exactly certain. And he ended up going back to Florida. And then the third guy just decided that he wanted to go back to, Jonathan wanted to go back to Milwaukee. I'm sorry, Jonathan was 4. But that was it. Those were the reasons for the breakups, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. Did you, because you lived through like that old school radio, right, from the late 70s all the way through till the internet comes in. And that's a game. I mean, here we are sitting in your living room, and this is going to be a podcast. One room over there, you do your own show over there.
I do a podcast it's been on hiatus for a little while. Part of that's had to do with my health, but I'm sorry, what was
I was just going to say, like the evolution of how radio has just completely changed.
Yeah.
And whereas, like, say, you and Baxter kind of just organically kind of being yourselves, but then you look at a national level and you got like a Ryan Seacrest, that everything is scripted at that point.
Yeah, everything is scripted there. And the change that the industry went through, I got in right on the edge of when radio was king. And I missed out on the, hey, here's some cocaine, play our record for us on the air. That era was just as I came in. And when I was a kid growing up, the people who did what I've done for a living were gods to me. I mean, I looked at them as the wizard behind the curtain, and in fact, that is what ended up happening once. Grew up in Enfield. There was a time when Bob's Surplus, not Bob's Furniture, but Bob's Surplus came into Enfield, and they had a grand opening at a shopping plaza on the end of my street practically, and I was able to ride down there on my bike. I think I was 13 years old, and I watched this guy perform for like 3.5 hours, and just awestruck. It was like looking at Santa Claus for real landing on the roof of your house. And he realized I'd been there for that long, and in the last half hour he was there, he invited me in. And again, it was like pulling back that curtain and being in the same room with the wizard, and I was just blown away by the experience, and that's when I decided that's what I wanted to do for a living. Full circle, come around full circle, 25, 30 years later, I'm driving through Springfield one morning, and I hear that voice. I recognize that voice from that guy, and he's in Springfield. He was doing a live broadcast from the Jim Dandy chicken joint in Springfield. And I went over to see him, and I introduced myself to him and reminded him of that day, and told him that I was in the business because of him. And he was a big fan of mine. When he realized who I was, he's like, "Oh, I listen to you all the time." And it was a very strange full circle that we went through.
Yeah, it really is. You have such a recognizable voice, kind of like you said with that individual. You heard his voice, and it brings you right back. And when I hear your voice, it's John O'Brien right away. Is that something that you had to work on, or is that just like a gift that you've always had?
That was, I don't even know if it's a gift or a curse, but that's just my voice. And it's funny because to this day, even having been off the air for over 3 years now, full time, I go to places where once I say something, I'll be maybe not surrounded by people, but I'll be in a room full of people, and I start to speak, and all of a sudden I get these little looks of recognition, and sometimes somebody will come up to me and say something, but many other times they won't. In fact, it's funny that when I moved here into this condo complex back in March, and in the first month I went to a condo association meeting, and I realized the moment I walked into the place, everybody knew who I was.
Oh, this is your demographic.
Well, it's my demographic, but word had gotten out that, hey, John O'Brien is moving in here. And surprisingly, I would have expected pitchforks and torches, but thankfully they were very welcoming to me, and have been since I've been here. But yeah, obviously I went into radio because I have the face for it. and that's the other reason why I never pursued a TV career. So the voice is obviously very recognizable, although it's not the same as it was. I've had several surgeries which have required breathing tubes.
Oh, geez.
And the tubes have kind of done damage. I'm a little more hoarse sounding now than I always was.
Yeah.
So.
That's a good transition right there. So you're having as traumatic health issues as you can possibly have right now.
I don't necessarily excuse me. I don't necessarily look at it that way. I've been lucky. I've been really lucky. First of all, I've been walking around with melanoma for 14 years. There's not a lot of people who've been walking around with any kind of cancer for 14 years. And the medications and the treatments that I've been through, the very first one I ever took was a little brutal, and that was for 2 years. And I kind of got beat up by that one, sickness, and I never lost my hair. I never threw up. I never got nauseous on any of the medications I've been through over the different times that I've gone through this. But it's yes, now we're at a point where I've been given 6 to 12 months, and the doctors aren't always right about that kind of stuff. It could be longer, it could be shorter, but it's not really something. The only reason I focus on it is because I hate the winter. And as a result of that, I dislike the fall because it's a precursor to the winter. Once I can't sit outside any longer, once I can't be outside sitting and reading, which is primarily what my day consists of, even before I got sick, that was for my career. Every day I'd be reading 5 or 6 newspapers a day. I'd be on the internet. I'd be looking all through there. And once I can't do that outside anymore, then I become really irritated and short, what's the word? Short patience.
Yeah.
And if that is the word. And so I've been dealing with this for some time, and I've been lucky in the way I've been dealing with it. You know, not so lucky now with the prognosis that I have, but you know, what are you going to do? I mean, I'm not afraid of death. I've come to accept it. I almost kind of welcome it because I feel like I've done all that I can, and I've been as lucky as anyone can expect to be. So at this point now, I just hope I can get through the remainder of whatever time I have left as painlessly as possible.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm in hospice. They come out to the house once a week. They take care of the medications. They make sure I'm comfortable, and so far I have been. And I tell you what, it was great fodder for the radio. Cancer is probably the best thing that ever happened to our show over the course of the years, because we talked about it so much, and it raised awareness, and people would come up to me at events, you know, where they knew who I was, and they'd say, "Hey, listen, I had this spot on my arm, and I was ignoring it for the longest time, and finally my wife or my husband told me to go and see the doctor, and I did, and it turned out that it was melanoma." I've had all 3 forms of skin cancer. The other 2, which are lesser than melanoma, I've had dozens of times. So when the melanoma came along, it really wasn't a surprise. It was just another step up the ladder towards the end. But yeah, lots of awareness was raised over this issue.
Yeah, I remember, you know, listening to you. I think the day you might even announced it. I remember listening. I used to listen. I had my own business, so I would sit in my store, and you guys would always be on the background. I think the day you announced it, and it was kind of like, oh shit, wow, this is real, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And that was what were the symptoms leading up to it, or was it just a mass?
It really wasn't.
Yeah.
I lived alone, and I don't have the dexterity or the flexibility to touch hands, you know, up from the back on my left hand or down from the top with my right. And it was somewhere dead center in the middle of my back. And it was growing, and I was unaware of it. When I finally did become aware of it, it was just from sitting down. I sat down one day, and I kind of felt a lump back there, and then I really went out of my way to try to feel what it might be, and it was clear that it was not a freckle or even just a regular mole. So I ended up going to the dermatologist right away, and they did the biopsy. And when I came back from the biopsy, it was stage 3. I had already at that moment it was stage 2. Then when we did tests and scans, determined that it had already spread into my lymph nodes. So then it was stage 4. I'm sorry, stage 3. And then thanks to the insurance company, who decided I didn't need to have scans every 3 months, I could have them every 6 months. 3 months later, I was stage 4.
Jesus.
And I've been in and out 4 times. I've been in remission 3 times, and then out of remission and back to actively fighting it. And now I'm actively dealing with it, although we have stopped all the treatments. I'm not up for any more treatments.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's there's a physical component, but the emotional component as well too. Which one's harder?
The physical one is.
Yeah.
Yeah. The physical one is. I'm not really a very emotional person. I've just got this one negative emotion, and it pretty much stays that way all the way down the track. But the physical, that's why I say I don't want any more. You know, I've had enough poking and prodding and cutting and stitching and all of that stuff. I've had 4 different surgeries, and you know, I've been lucky. All the stuff that I've had, the very first immunotherapy, when immunotherapy was finally, excuse me a second, when it was finally approved for melanoma, I was right on the cutting edge. There were only 2 of us from the Damore Center in Springfield who were on this stuff. And I actually got to know the other guy. He called into the radio station the morning I mentioned that it was me and one other guy. He called in. He was, I asked him on the air, I asked him what he did for a living. He was a former Springfield cop, and his family owns WAQY Funeral Home here in Indian Orchard.
Right.
And we got to know each other, and he had a great sense of humor, and we did a couple of videos together that we put on YouTube. And I made a bet with him. I said, listen, here's the deal. If I die first, you give me a discount on the funeral. And if you die first, I get you back an O'Brien t-shirt.
That's fair. It seems like a very fair value.
Fair value, maybe not, but it was the best I could offer at the time.
Yeah. And
he passed probably 4 months later. But his sister followed me out to my car in the parking lot and said, "Hey, don't forget, you owe him a shirt." And so the family was great. They were really a bunch of nice people, and I felt awful. I had a survivor's guilt. I was friends with Mike Belize, and he got sick and he passed from cancer. And our producer Steve Nagel, his wife came down with it in her 40s, and she passed. And I really genuinely had this survivor's guilt. It was like, well, wait a minute. These other people had so much more to live for. Why am I the one who's still here? If it's not the truth that only the good die young, well, then I shouldn't be here. But I am.
Well, it's there's a message out there that you're certainly helping, push out there. You're an Irish guy. I'm an Irish guy. I go through for a body scan once a year. It's like it's built into my DNA, literally built into my DNA. My dermatologist even told me, he's like, because you're from this Northern European district, you're going to be more susceptible to that. And I mean, is that the same experience that you've heard from doctors?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Being a pasty white Irish guy has not helped me in any way. And when I was a kid, excuse me, I wasn't a sun worshiper. I didn't put on baby oil and lay out on the beach. It was just a natural, normal, daily exposure to the sun, I'm sure, that ended up, over the years, because at some point when I was a teenager or maybe in my 20s, I could get a burn from a 120-watt bulb. Yeah. So the sun was definitely a lot much more than that. And I don't know, there's never any absolute definitive method for why or how they say you get it, but I'm certain being a pasty white Irish guy is definitely not what helped me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. You said you're not an emotional person. I think that's also an Irish thing. We tend to just stuff it down and make believe it doesn't exist.
Oh, yeah.
Are you a spiritual person?
I'm not a religious person. I don't know about spiritual anymore. I used to think I was a spiritual person, but I don't know. My outlook has kind of changed a little bit. Looking at death now from this standpoint, it's changed me a little bit. I mean, I'm of the belief that when you go, it's the same as before you came. Before you were born, you have no memories of anything. You have no consciousness of anything. You have no awareness of anything. And I believe that that's what death is also. It's not the way I was raised. I was raised as a Catholic, and I was an altar boy, and I did my first communion and all that kind of stuff. But my looking at it now from a 6 to 12 month possibility, I would say no, I'm probably not as spiritual as I thought I was.
Yeah, I would imagine anybody that's in your boat, that kind of becomes it's either going to put you over the top or maybe they regress backwards and they don't believe in anything. I don't know. Who knows? Everybody's different. As far as, so you said you have 8 to 12 months or whatever
well, now it's 5 to 12.
I was going to ask you, so when was that diagnosed? So you're
September.
5. Okay, so September. So we're just a month ago, a little more than a month ago.
Yeah.
So
and it was at the crappiest time of year. This is what I mean. If I had a choice, I would have been told that I had 6 months on March 1st or April 1st.
Yeah.
At least when the weather was going to turn soon into the nicer weather, as opposed to where we are now, where it's going to turn soon and it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
And those are going to be my first 6 months. And if I only get 6 months of quality living, because at this point now, we're more concerned with quality than we are with quantity. And I want the quality of my time that I have left to not be stuck inside the house because it's snowing outside and it's too cold, or I've got side effects of skin issues that are exacerbated by the cold. That's why I had a house in Florida and was going down there for the winters for 3 years, was because I just couldn't take New England winters any longer based on this skin condition I had. Now I've been forced to unfortunately sell the property down in Florida, and I'm stuck here for the winter, and it's if all I got is 6 months left, rather, it's gonna suck.
Yeah,
it's gonna suck
for sure. What's the typical day like for you right now? I mean, I'm assuming there's a regiment, because you live solo, right? Do you have a lot of visitors? You have family coming over?
I obviously have more visitors than I've ever had before the prognosis.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And I'm not a great host, so that sometimes can be a little bit of a hindrance. If people want to come over, I like to have them come over in twos. Yeah. I like to have them stay for a couple of hours, and then by then I'm done with the conversation and next. But it's pretty regimented, and I've got there, as I mentioned, there's the pool over there. And the problem that I was not expecting when I first came in here was the amount of grandchildren that spend their summer days with grandma and grandpa because they've got a pool.
And your windows are open,
and
you're
I'm
screaming.
Right, yeah, and I'm 40 yards off the pool. I actually measured it. And it's a regimented form of life, but I've always lived that way. It's just that it's a much smaller, I'm much more cocooned living here than I was when I was out in Chicopee. But I just couldn't stay in Chicopee. There were too many stairs in my house. Yeah. It was requiring too much physical, even though I did a Stairmaster every day for like 25 years, it was a different movement, a different motion, a different set of muscles that you use with an actual staircase. And I realized I needed to get into a place that had one floor living. And that's what this is. These condos are all one floor.
Yeah, it's beautiful out here.
It is very nice. It's very nice. It's very quiet. But again, I spend most of my day reading. So quiet is what I love.
Do you find at any point you're kind of getting in your own head because of everything that's kind of going on right now? 9 o'clock at night, it's dark out. You're sitting here just watching some TV, and then you start playing mind games?
Not so much mind games, no. And I don't really focus a lot on the idea of death. As I mentioned, I kind of am almost looking. It's not that I'm looking forward to it, but I've come to accept it. Again, I realize there's not a lot of people 14 years later still walking around in my condition up until a month ago. So I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that. I've got, plans have been made and legal things have been taken care of, and the kind of stuff that needs to be done upon my demise have already been taken care of. So that kind of preparation stuff is all good, and I don't have to focus or ruminate on any of that. And there's no real regret. There's no. I think I had it pretty good. I think I had a pretty good life. Whatever wasn't perfect was partially my own fault, but it's not something I focus on. No, not really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your outlook seems to be really great. I read the article that Stephanie Berry did about you in Mass Live, really on point. I mean, some of your, like Timmy Rook's one of your really, really good friends. You guys used to do a lot of traveling together. And I thought the way you finished that article was really cool, is that I love going on trips with Timmy, but I'm glad I'm taking this one by myself.
Yeah, yeah. I asked him if he wanted to go. He wasn't interested. So it's going to be a solo deal. But you know what? I have vacationed solo, and I have lived solo, and I'm going to die solo. So that's fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you, John, for letting me come over and chat with you. It's nice to see you here in your home environment. I think I can speak for anybody. Like I said, my brother, he's like, please tell John how important that show was for contractors like me. We're out doing it, but I think it goes well beyond the contractor world. But the comedy, the joy, the laughs, and the sadness. When things like what happened with Steve's wife happened, we all lived that stuff with you guys, and you brought a lot of really great things to this region, our little bubble that we live in here, the Springfield Pioneer Valley. You guys were our little local rock stars. So thank you for that.
I appreciate it. And again, tell your brother I said hi. And yeah, I do appreciate it. Sorry I couldn't do a river walk.
That's okay.
But I suppose every now and then you have to make an exception.
We definitely do. So, good luck with everything. I don't know what else to say. It's a weird spot for me, sure. From my perspective, I'm like,
you want to trade?
I don't know if I might be going down that same road eventually too. But
eventually we all are.
Every day we wake up, we're all one day closer, right?
But few of us are told, here. And again, they're not always right. I mean, it's very likely. We just had a roast last week for me that was more of a celebration of life kind of thing. And there were a number of people there who said, we'll be back again next year. Mm-hmm. So who knows? Who really knows? But I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, John. I do appreciate it. So it's going to do it for this week's show. This is on YouTube, but primarily it's seen on Instagram and Facebook. And I got some more shows coming up, so thanks for tuning in. We'll see you very soon.